Western Cape Premier Alan Winde has rubbished claims that 7 malls in Cape Town will from today become targets of violent looting sprees by a rogue group of local residents. Premier Winde joins me now to talk more on the seriousness of these claims. Premier, good evening and thank you very much for your time. Since the start of the unrest and throughout the week, you have been battling this campaign of disinformation. Does it indicate to you at all that there are those who are targeting some of the key points in the Western Cape?
Yeah, I think definitely it's obviously an orchestrated campaign, number one. And then number two, there are people who love to stoke things up and spread fake news and to sort of create an atmosphere of panic. And so it has been a whole week of trying to understand when a threat comes in. You need to take every single one of them seriously, but then you need to go through a threat analysis, hand it over to the teams that do that, make sure that we actually understand where those threats are coming from, checking back into our own intelligence, and then monitoring through our own systems. And of course, I think what we have really got right in the last week is, I want to call it a joined up whole of society approach. So from our police commissioner, General Patakile, an outstanding job from him and his team, joined up with Metro Police, law enforcement, our own, we have officers that we call LEAP officers. They specially deployed to the gang hotspots. We've got, then of course, it's the neighborhood watchers and the civil society movements, as well as private sector. They were all, and then we also had a deployment of military at the end of the week as well. All of it working together and, distilling the information, understanding where their risks were, eyes on the ground across the board. And, anytime anything rose its head, it was dealt with swiftly and decisively. So it's been a week of tenterhooks, but also an amazing week of seeing how everyone's pulled together to minimize risk.
Right. We heard from the president last night that there was poor planning on the part of government to respond to the sporadic outbreaks of these violent protests at simultaneously happening in various places. Talk to me about what your plan is. Have you got a plan in place, particularly to protect retail outlets, malls, and factories and warehouses?
Okay, so obviously over the weekend, last weekend, it started. We saw it was happening. We started, pulling our team together by Monday at a SAPS level. General Patakile had already called people back from leave. He'd already pulled together a shift system, which changed from, I suppose, basically it's a 4-shift system down to a 2-shift system. So it's a day and a night with maximum participation. That is linked through our Joint Operations Command through to the city of Cape Town specifically. Their Director Roberts does exactly the same thing, pulls together our Metro Police, our law enforcement officers and police officers. They then form part of the structured plan that meets regularly every morning and then has follow-up meetings during the day. They would then create the space where the intel would be drawn from. That has a committee that feeds back into our own cabinet, but also our safety cluster. Then, of course, we link that into the neighborhood watches, as I've said. At stages, we were pulling in the private security companies, engaging with them through our structures. And then from a government point of view, we set up, we've already got, because of COVID-19, we've got our management structure in place. But what I did on Tuesday was I expanded what we call the expanded cabinet. That includes all the districts and the city of Cape Town and the provincial government. We expand, and then of course the South African Police Services are linked in there as well. We expanded that to include every mayor, every municipal manager in all of our municipalities. And I've also omitted that our traffic departments, both in our municipalities as well as our province, also plays a critical role with eyes and ears in the system. And we've also then cascaded that down. So mayors, municipal managers, the local station police commander, And those neighborhood watches and citizen movements in each of those municipalities were then doing exactly the same thing. We've been holding a cabinet briefing every morning at 7:30. We've met with we've met with business partners. We've met with our consul generals internationally. We've met with our consul generals and ambassadors that represent other countries here in our region. We've met with our faith-based organizations. It is a regular system that we have in place, and we have had in place for the COVID-19 pandemic. But of course, we just concertinaed it into this week, keep people informed as to what's happening, and then also be vigilant on the ground, regular reports back to the citizens, at least twice a day.
Yeah.
And then, of course, those feedback come in when anything raises its head. And then the deployment was according to a risk analysis. The deployment was also to the key areas in our province that needed to be protected. Whether it was energy, water supply, road infrastructure, big distribution centers, shopping centers, key industries, some of the industries also that were really key to making sure we've got sufficient medicines in the system, etc. They were all made sure they were part of a strategic plan to keep them safe with 24/7 patrols, etc.
Yeah, I saw one of your updates earlier on today saying that indeed so far there has been not a single event reported in the Western Cape. What is your intelligence telling you? Have there been attempts?
So thus far we've had no looting at all anywhere in the province. But what we have done is I've said that anything can trigger it. I mean, we at the moment are battling a taxi war in our province. We have got warring factions in the taxi industry, and that really concerns me because that could also be a trigger. We monitor even a normal protest. So we've had in one part of the province, we've got a labor dispute happening in the fishing industry. It was picked up, it was dealt with, obviously it could trigger something. We'd pick up a gathering on our camera system in Beaufort West and, we deploy and calm it down. There was 3 nights ago, there was unrest in one of our communities around the removal of an illegal structure. And there was some protest that evening. There was immediate deployment. We've even had some shoplifting in a number of our shops. Obviously shopping centers have been, a high alert space. In each of those cases, it's been dealt with swiftly. The police, the law enforcement, the neighborhood watchers have been outstanding and very, very swiftly. I mean, one shopping center, I watched the CCTV cameras. 2 shoplifters tried to steal something in a shop, and I think more than 30 enforcement officers, a mixture of SAPs, police officers, law enforcement, neighborhood watchers, arrested them within minutes. I saw the same thing with some kids trying to steal something out of a shop, and the same thing. I mean, there were law enforcement, neighborhood watchers all over them very quickly. So, I mean, I'm not saying that nothing has happened. As I said, we've got the taxi risks, and there's general crime that happens, and you don't want any of these activities to be a spark that could get something going. So, I mean, I am really grateful to the full spectrum. We call it the whole of society, but it's this full spectrum from SAPs to the military to law enforcement, municipal policing, traffic policing, and then big time. I mean, I'm proud of them. The neighborhood watch community out there, I mean, really have been outstanding.
And the farming patrols, of course, have also been helping and throwing a hand in this. Let's talk a little bit about the logistics. Now we have talking about security. Pack houses, citrus pack houses are having a little bit of a challenge. That cold storage is not able to actually hold fruit for weeks. It's just a couple of days, but they aren't able to move those products to Durban. What's the response?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously what we've got to do is try to make sure we can fill up the gaps. If we can't move stuff through Durban, we must try and move stuff through Cape Town. That also then makes sure we've got to have the rail system operational and, of course, trucks again on the roads. But, we definitely are there to play our part. I had a discussion with premiers of KZN, a message to Premier of Gauteng. My DGs had discussions, is there anything we can do to help there? And whether it's logistics and getting freight out, exports, obviously we need every rand counts at the moment. We need to get the economies going again. We're very happy to play our part to make sure that we get things back up and running again, that we get the economy going again. Of course, all while fighting the peak of a third wave of this pandemic. But yeah, we'll play our part however that we can.
Yeah. What are the farmers saying? Will they be able to keep up in terms of the production schedules? We know that there are, for example, delays in getting feed for livestock. There are delays in for example, fertilizers, fuel, and equipment that is required because some of it is stuck at the ports in Durban.
Okay, so in the Western Cape, I mean, we have a cabinet meeting every morning at 7:30. At this morning's cabinet meeting, our disaster management report that came in, I mean, it looked okay for this province. I mean, we have offered what we can help in other provinces. At the moment in the Western Cape, no fuel shortages. We're all fine there. I haven't had blockages in our port, any reports of it. So everything there seems to be moving smoothly. You know, if we do have slowdowns in the port, it's normally weather related. At the moment, it seems to be okay. And again, you know, if we can offer any support, we will, because we need to understand what those blockages are. I've also asked our disaster management to check and see what are those products that perhaps are going to be short. We know that we've heard reports about yeast being short because of manufacturing capabilities. What are the other manufacturing capabilities that are perhaps going to create shortfalls? Are we understanding what they are? What do we need to do to mitigate those risks? But as of this morning, from the Western Cape's point of view, everything looked to be okay. But of course, we are monitoring all of those very, very closely.
Premier Winde, I appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on In Focus.